Hello and welcome to the first training video. Now, I have a lot of experience doing these. What we're going to try and do with this format is really get straight to what's important and what I really need to convey, what I believe is most important to your success. Because as you dive into studying e-commerce and digital marketing, it's extremely easy. It's an industry standard for people to tend to go in circles and kind of lose their footing and kind of, for the most part, I would say typically for the first 12 to 24 months of someone being involved, unless they're just one of the lucky numbers, they're probably going to spend a lot of time spinning their wheels just because of how much information. We're talking about the combination of business analysis and IT. So when digital marketing started and websites started, they were very much IT focused. But once the software began to develop so far, they begin to back their software up with what's called dashboards. So dashboards are the back end logins to a piece of software where you can see all of the analytical data. So IT, as it pertains to digital marketing and being a webmaster, eventually evolved to analysis. So we're talking about two highbrow, if you will, two very meticulous in thought industries and combining them together. So it can be very easy to spin the wheels. And I said all that to say this. I have a lot of experience making consultation videos and training videos and things to help people understand their direction, and they can either be scripted, non-scripted, they can be verbatim. I tend to go like 45 minutes plus, and so essentially what I'm trying to say is I'm going to try and get directly to the meat and potatoes of what you need to hear. Now give me just a second, let me double check my mic and make sure everything's set up the way that I want it, and then we'll get it going. Okay, got to check my time throughout the introductory. We're at almost about 3 minutes. Wanted to double check my mic. Been an audio engineer for about a decade, so I was picking up on a little bit of feedback, some sound coming out of the headphones. Turn it down on the audio interface and double check my mic for the input of the video. Want to make sure everything comes in clear. So let's get started. What we're going to be talking about in videos 1 and 2. Video 1, we're going to be talking about a general breakdown, and this is a candid, non-scripted video. Don't worry if there's any interruptions. I'll pause it. We'll get right to it. Just making sure that we're being functional here is our primary task. The first video we're going to be talking about a breakdown of Shopify. So we're going to take a look at the back end of Shopify. It's going to be very simple. We're just going to go through each item and kind of take a look at what's to consider, what you might need to double check specific to you and what your operations are, making sure that you're educated about certain things so that they're somewhere near the forefront of thought, so that when you go do something with some platform, say Facebook marketing or banner advertising or whatever integration you end up doing with your sales funnel, and we'll talk about sales funnels in the next video. We're going to do a general breakdown of the back end of Shopify. That way, when you are constructing your own sales funnel, you know what you're doing and where you're going. Got some of my training pulled up. I try and keep my whatever coursework I'm doing, I try and keep it pulled up. That way I stay motivated and keep moving. Okay, so let's go in through the back end here of my Shopify. I've got an example store, I believe, here that we can work with. and I will try my best not to make this too long. There was a long period there where I was making like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, so doing consultation, you can end up being a bit of a motor mouth because you can just go on ad infinitum, continually digressing to teach. And sometimes what people really need is just to, not everybody's listening to a consultation video and taking notes as they go along. So it's best just to kind of, I really like to do it semi-scripted, but it's better if I just don't and just go and show someone what they need to see. Okay, so right now this is where we're going to be. We're going to be looking at the, you could call this a dashboard, or I don't know what their actual admin panel. It's kind of like it's not really like a cPanel. It's more like WordPress calls theirs a dashboard, I believe. So it's basically, I always call it the back end. So this is the back end of the website, which I'm sure you're familiar with. You've gotten to see this sort of homepage. I don't really do a lot with the homepage. Not even sure really what they've got there. I know that they've got quick links, that link out to different things that you might need access to. So let's just go straight down the line as opposed to going to the first things that come to my mind. Let's just go straight down it. So we've got home here. Don't do a lot with that. Going into orders. These are orders that are going to come in, and this is where you can manage them. There are ways to set up automatic orders. If your orders are supposed to be fulfilling automatically and they are not, that is just a simple IT issue. You go out, you Google, you hit the forums and figure out what the issue is and change it. It might just be a singular tick box within your settings that needs to be changed. It might have something to do with the product. This is IT. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this is IT. So it could be one of 100 million different things, and you just have to get in there and play with it. So as far as, and I'm speaking generally now, not just about orders, but as far as anything that ever goes wrong, just Google it and YouTube it and see what people say. And I try and paraphrase verbatim, not paraphrase, that's an oxymoron. I try and put in quotations verbatim what kind of error messages I'm getting. Number one rule of IT, for me personally, typically the number one rule is just to reboot whatever device it is, and 99% of the time that fixes the problem. But the number one rule for me is to read the text on the screen. Many times people are just looking around for highlighted buttons, they're looking around for different stuff. Anytime you get any kind of anomaly, whether it's an error or whatever it is, read what's on the screen, because those are called prompts. And those prompts are there to prompt you about what's going on. So anytime there's and I'm speaking even more generally now, even if it's not an error and there's just something you're trying to do and you can't quite figure it out, it would behoove you, if I've used that word correctly, to try and figure it out, because then you develop a general IT skill where you're able to carry yourself. So I could continue on. Let's just keep going for the sake of time. So you've got drafts and abandoned checkouts. Not a whole lot to talk about there. This is all within the context of orders. So orders, this is just where you're going to be managing your orders once they're coming in. Going down to products, this is where all your products are contained. Transfers, purchase orders, inventory, collections, gift cards. Adding a product, we should go ahead and take a look at this. This is one that we should dive into. You've got your title here. You've got your description. Typically, my formula is to drop in a picture that says, something like your shipping is safe. It's like badges, what are called badges. So you can find, badges and images that say free shipping, secured shipping, satisfaction guaranteed, all of these different things. Whatever makes your customer more likely to convert from a security standpoint. Excuse me. Now, if we click this, we'll get over into HTML. I don't have to explain what HTML is, but everything that you put in through this front end, let's say we get, an image, some text, and we get some more images, we get some emoticons, we get some, I'm clicking some button here that's shifting. And we get all kinds of things going on, right? We get into this content and, just for the sake of showing some code, we'll do some minor adjustments. Formatting. So this is all HTML. You see this heading stuff, all of this is HTML. So we'll link this out to just this site. And we'll put in a link title. Got the caps rolling there. So let's hop over into HTML. Now you see this is all converted into code, HTML. There are going to be times when you have to hop into some HTML. And again, hopefully I'm using this term correctly. It would behoove you to not allow yourself to be intimidated by that. You can always copy and paste your code and then paste it elsewhere and then make some changes. So don't be afraid to get in there if need be, depending on what you're working on. Because down the line, you might get confident enough to where you want to actually change something about your website in the, I can't remember the type of code. I don't think it's CSS. The Shopify code, I think it might be a proprietary language. I can't remember, but there can be times. We'll take a look at that as we come upon it. But you've got gift cards and collections that you can create out of different items. Maybe you've got, whatever grouping of items, basically like a grouping of items. So this is your products panel. We've got customers here. Oh, you know what? I would actually like to continue on with this and go over some other things. So you've got media. This is where you would drop in pictures and have them in order for your page. But there's also another way to bring in pictures, and that is, we don't have a product in here, but there would be another one of these rectangular panels here, or additions, that has your products listed. And you'll see it right away. And within that, you can click an edit button. And when you click that edit button, you can change the corresponding image for that specific product. And it's extremely easy to get to. You'll see it right away. But that's another way to bring in images. And when you do that, what's unique to that process, when you pair a specific image with a specific product, when the customer or prospective customer clicks on that option on the product page, it will automatically pull up that corresponding picture so that they're looking at it right away. So there's the difference. So we've got pricing. Now pricing can be set up through the back end through Oberlo. It's set up automatically. But ultimately, you want to keep a tight grip on your pricing. So when you're adding new products, you want to make sure that you enter the correct pricing. You can also, again, in that additional panel where it lists all the products or product variations that you have for a single product. Maybe you have a t-shirt in red or a t-shirt in yellow and a t-shirt in blue, and they're all the same t-shirt. You're going to have another one of these rectangular panels that illustrates all the variations of that t-shirt. And you can change each image to the red t-shirt variation has the corresponding red t-shirt image. Well, you can also checkbox all of those products and edit in bulk through an almost Excel-like spreadsheet the pricing, the cost of the item, and that again is extremely standard. You just check the boxes and you click the edit button, edit in bulk. It's right there, extremely difficult to miss. So you can edit pricing in bulk. Let's say you have a product with 20 variations and you want to change the pricing for all of them. You can do that in the Excel form, in sort of an Excel format where you highlight all of these cells and you can edit the pricing in bulk. But ultimately, if you have a single product and you want to price it, you always want to do a compare at price. And you always want to do a little bit of market research and see what things are going for. You also want to understand that when people visit your Shopify store, they're primary impulse buys. So it's okay for you to mark up the price a bit. $2, $4, $5, $9, depending on, and you have to be strategic about this and kind of think about it. Excuse me. Depending on what it is you're selling and depending on your incoming traffic through your marketing channel and depending on what kind of warming you've done throughout your sales funnel and ultimately depending on your product, you could get away with a bump in $20, $40, $50, $100, $200 above standard market price. Especially if you consider factors like what if you can find the product online but you can't necessarily find a great supplier on Amazon, then it's a little bit more difficult. If someone does want to see if they can get a lower price, they'll go straight to Amazon. If they don't see it on Amazon, then they might not look around it any further at all. So, and it's also good to keep in mind that, and again, this really depends on your marketing channels. Like if you're doing banner advertising on a forum, then it might be safe to bet that everybody's on a desktop. But if you're coming in from social media, you can bet your bottom dollar that at least 70% of the traffic is going to be mobile. So these are all things to think about, and we'll talk about that more in the next video when we're talking about kind of introducing sales funnels and strategy. Price, you want to do things that you would see in a retail store because there's reasons that they do that. When you do $19.99, there's psychological reasons that those things are done. When you do that, it gets customers subconsciously thinking about small increments. So when you say something is $20, people are like, only $20 more and it'd be $40. I don't want to spend $40. Only $10 more and it would be $30. I don't want to spend $30. So it gets them thinking in increments of 10s and 20s. But when you do it $19.99, it gets them subconsciously thinking in increments of a penny. And they're thinking, you know what? I would probably buy it if it was $19.98, and I would probably buy it if it was $20 flat. So $19.99 is a no-brainer. Other things you want to do are like $19.95, $19.94. But you don't want to do like $23.22. That's weird. It's awkward. It makes people feel anxious. And if you leave it at the automatic pricing, that's what Shopify will do because it's automatically calculating specific profit margins. It wants you to profit to a specific percentage depending on the product. And it does that, I think, automatically. I don't think that it's machine learning or anything like that. Otherwise, I think it'd be a bit more intuitive. But you really want to kind of round up And hopefully, well, there are a lot of factors involved with that. Let's just stick with running down this. So you want to do something like $19.99, and you might compare it to like $24.99, or you might compare it with, $29.99, or you might compare it with, $29.98, or you might do it the other way around, $29.99 and $19.98. So just stick with what you see in retail stores. You might do $34.99. Don't do $19.99 and it's typically $2.99. That's ridiculous. Who do you think you're fooling? So just be realistic and do what you would typically see in a retail store. Now your cost per item might be automatically calculated. This is something that customers won't see. And you can charge tax on this product or not. It's good to have your cost because then you've got running totals of your profit margins and so on. You've got your inventory. You can set up SKUs, barcodes. You can track quantity or not track quantity. It's a specific, two specific times when you wouldn't want to track quantity is if you're selling a digital product at some point, like an ebook or something. Or if you have so many suppliers for something and something is just flying off the shelves that you don't want to stop the flying off the shelves, because even if your current supplier runs out, you know that you can just swap it for another supplier and continue to fulfill that item. You got continue selling when you're out of stock. Quantity there. We'll just leave that checked. Shipping, this is a physical product where it's not. Weight, customs information. So again, this kind of comes back to prompts. It's good to read everything that is on the screen, because then that information will be lost on you. Variants, this product has, so there's your variance screen. And you can enter in different options, like we have set one and we'll put in color. We'll add another option and we'll put in size. And then here's the screen that I was talking about. We're going to do $19.99, or wait. Oops, I did that backwards. So we're going to do color first. We'll do red, we'll do blue, and we'll do green. Use a comma there. We'll do blue. We'll do green. Add another option, size. We're going to do small, medium, and large. And then now you can see that we've got a lot of variations. So basically it's multiplicative. They do whatever the mathematical formula is, where they get every combination of item. You've got a small red, you've got a medium red, you've got a medium blue, and a large green. Now you can set your pricing for these, $14.99, $19.99. We've got $24.99. And these variants will change as you enter more information and you'll have more options. They should eventually include check marks, check boxes, images, and being able to edit the variants in bulk. So this is your variants panel, and keep an eye on it when you have variants within a single product. So when you need to make edits and changes, this is the panel where you will do that to those variants. Okay, so let's move on for the sake of time here. Customers, this is where you're going to Wonder if I can pull that back up. I want to check something real quick here. Okay, so there's the added information in the variance panel. It will change when the variance exists. So you won't gain access to like the bulk editor and things until you save the variants themselves. So now I can get into selecting different products. Like I gotta change the prices of all my larges. And so we can go over to more options, edit options, reorder variants, bulk editor, edit prices, quantities, images, remove images, so on and so forth. I do want to show you sort of the Excel format just so it's communicated. So if I go in and I do this little number, which I'm sure you're familiar with, it will change each, but it'll what you want to keep an eye on is over here you see on the left hand side the dots. If you are changing let's say 20 variants, it will run a little spinning wheel that is saying, hey, I'm running through each item and changing the price through the code in the back end. And so you want to wait and make sure until every single one is updated, and then you'll click save. Okay, so one last thing I wanted to show you there in product variants is this edit button. So going into this red large $19.99 shirt, I can go into edit and then I can add an image here, and then that image or images that I add will correspond to that individual product. And of course you can get into the SKUs and all the other information that you can edit there. So customers, this is where all your customers are going to be, itemized once you have orders coming in. Analytics, this is your dashboard. See, overview dashboard. So this is where all the information is contained. Added to cart, here is a special note. Added to cart, you can see how many people have added, reached, checkout, sessions converted, and make sure that you understand that you can change your dates for what information you're looking at. By default, when you come to this panel, you're only looking at information for today. This won't show you what information looked like from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago. So it's important to note that. And you've got the rest of your analytical reports that you can print out, live view, things that you can see happening in the moment. If you've got a lot of people on the site, you can see what's going on. And a great thing about Shopify, one of the things that I love, is their hosting is very, what do they call that? Closed. It's like closed platform or something like that. It's kind of like what Apple does. It's a closed platform. So you don't have people on the consumer side of things getting into the hosting and muddying the waters. So due to that fact, everyone's hosting is the same. It's well maintained and it's lightning fast. And I don't remember what brought me down that tangent, but there was something else I wanted to convey, but I can't remember what it is. But the hosting is wonderful with Shopify. I would not mind paying the premium ever in any scenario for the type of speed that you get. And that's so important for conversions. The faster your website loads, the more sales you're going to be getting. Because if it takes an extra, I forget what the article said, but it was something like you can lose up to a large percentage of sales just due to it taking an extra second or two. Let me check my time. Okay, I'm at 30 minutes, so I need to keep moving here. So marketing, this is just going to give you certain marketing data. If you get into it and you read it, it's going to give you probably links out to different things, articles. You can see here marketing applications, Snapchat ads. It's just going to link you out to stuff. And it's going to give you like tips and tricks. So it might be a relevant place for you to stop by and really read what each individual item says. But I would make sure that you don't end up going down a rabbit hole and kind of losing focus on what's important. So you've got campaigns and automations. That's going to be your email swipes and your autoresponders, which is where you would have your email information, like your campaigns. What's going out? How are you getting customers to come back? Here you've got discounts, where you can manage discount codes and different things like that. Applications, this is where you install third-party applications, and then once they are installed, you come back to this apps panel, and that's where you can access them. I'm going to try and move a little bit faster here, so stick with me. Online stores, where you actually come in to manage the store. So if you go into customize, that is where you can go into the drag and drop portion of editing the website. Now, I'm not going to take a look at that right now because it could change depending on what theme you're using. It can change depending on what your goals are. It can change depending on what your brand color is. So we'll take a look at some of that stuff potentially in another video. But then again, it is a very well-contained thing. It's a very well-contained thing, customizing your website, meaning that you can just go directly to YouTube and type in whatever question it is that you have. You might include your theme name. The theme name here is debut. And you can just see, depending on what your question is, like how to change my logo. You can just type that into YouTube and see that right away. So I may or may not cover that in a further video, depending on what I determine is most important as we move along. Numbers 1 and 2, I want to make sure that those are in the books because that's what's going to keep you grounded. Okay, so free themes. Real quick, this is how you change your themes. I prefer the Brooklyn Classic. I think that it's it looks really nice and it's simple. So you can see that I'm uploading the theme here, and then once the theme is uploaded, I would go into actions and publish to actually change the theme. So I'm not going to do that right now. Well, I just want to make sure that once you select the theme like it's done now, it's just downloaded and installed it. It hasn't actually changed the theme yet. You can see here it still says debut and Brooklyn is still down here. We're going to go into actions and publish, and then that's how you would actually change your theme. So you've got blog posts, pretty self-explanatory. Pages, this is where you're going to create pages. There are certain pages that are, and again, this has the front end and the back end on it. And we'll be talking more about pages and things in the next video, what to create, what not to create. When you have, we'll talk more about this in the future, but when you have, for example, a landing page, let's say you have a single offer and you either want people to give you their email or you want them to just move on. When you do that, it's an important concept to keep from adding what are called leaks. So it's kind of like the more options that you give people to click away from your sales, the more they'll take advantage of that option, even if subconsciously. So if I have a landing page that is trying to collect emails and I give people the option to read my about page, learn more about the company, learn more about the product, learn more about who we are, that might make sense from a business development standpoint in the real world. But when you're talking about e-commerce, you want to give people fewer options. Keep your sales funnel simple, and your I can't think of the word, but for all intents and purposes, your sales flow, your customer flow, will be much easier to predict. And if you can predict it, you can control it. So it's important to keep that in mind. Now, there are, you make your own pages, but there are also pages like Contact Us. And then you would just drop in, you would go over to a template suffix page.contact, and then you could just save that, and it would automatically generate a contact page with a contact form. So then go on down to navigation. Navigation, you've got your footer menu, so that's the menu at the bottom of the page, every page. And then you've got your main menu, and that's the menu at the top of your page. Now in main menu, I typically prefer to change catalog to shop, and if I'm only selling one item or I'm only marketing one item, I would prefer to change that link to the specific product. So you would go down to products and then, shirt. Let's say I'm marketing that product on Facebook, and for whatever reason, I know that the person clicked on to my page, to my store, to buy that specific product. So even if I have other products, it might be wise for me to just go ahead and link the shop button to, and this is not the shop button in your hero image. This is not the shop button when you see on the first page. This is the shop menu button, the menu label up in the top right hand corner. We'll take a more looks at that when we start to take a gander at the front end of e-commerce websites as they pertain to Shopify. So I'll go ahead and save that menu. You can add menu items. You can drop in page name, and you can just go on down to link. You really don't even have to put in a page name. So if you create a page and the page itself has a name, you can go into link and go into pages, and then you can select the page that you created and it would auto-populate the name. So that's a very convenient feature. Give me just a second here, I'll be right back with you. Okay, let's try and wrap things up here. I got more that I want to cover, but for the sake of time, for the sake of brevity, getting into domains, this is where you're going to do all of your domain management. They do their domain names a little bit differently. You don't manage them with name servers. So typically what you would do is you would go buy a domain through this portal, through this page. You would buy the domain and then everything would just connect automatically. But if you buy the domain elsewhere, then you have to get into editing. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. You would connect an existing domain. You would type in the domain name, and then you have to go into editing the DNS properties on your domain name through your actual registrar, and then you have to link this portal with the domain name, which is I think is sort of the old way of doing things, really. I mean, I have a lot of experience doing that with different platforms, but the platforms that utilize that are typically a lot more complex. That has to do more with like a lot of hosting and different things that I've done down that rabbit hole. I didn't really expect Shopify to not utilize name servers. So it's kind of a different thing, but easy to work with once you've got the hang of it. And the reason I mentioned that is because I've tried a bunch of different things utilizing different. I won't get into it in detail. Okay, so preferences. Once you get into preferences and settings, it's good to just read each item. Read what it is, what it says, what it might have to do with, because it might have corresponding settings elsewhere, or implications, or it might impact your store in different ways. So it's important to kind of know where these different things are. So homepage title, homepage meta description, social sharing image previews. So this is sort of, I can't remember the technical name for it, but it says it right there. Social sharing image preview, so that when your store itself is shared, that's the image that social media will refer to. Dropping in your Google Analytics code. So if you create a Google, like a Gmail, and you create a Google Analytics account and you create a new property under Google Analytics, it will give you a code, and you paste that code here, and then your Shopify store will be connected with Google Analytics. Then you've got your Facebook pixel. So when you create an ad account with Facebook and you create a Facebook pixel, you drop in your Facebook pixel code here, and then you continue on with Facebook's ad manager to develop that pixel and make sure that it's connected. So a lot of times when you start a Shopify store, it will be password protected. That just means that it's not live in a way. Nobody can access it without the password. That way you can continue to develop it, and then once it's ready, remove the password so that it can be accessed from the front end by anyone. And then Google reCAPTCHA at checkout. So this is what I mean by reading what is there. You wouldn't want to just come in and say spam protection. Go ahead and drop that there, because maybe you don't really want to do reCAPTCHA at checkout. So it's good to just read what's there. So we won't be covering all of this just for the sake of brevity. But what's a good idea is to just click on each one of these, and just like we did with preferences, go down and read what's in there. So what's typically important for me is to, what's typically important for me out of the settings panel are just one or two items here out of the first one, and then legal. I am a large provider, so I don't do the billing anymore. I don't enter my own billing unless I'm building up the store and building up sales and history and things like that. So, and then accounts if you want to add staff. So, but these options are really, really important, and it's important to go into each one. Some of the options will actually have to do with automating processes as they pertain to Oberlo. So it's a good practice to just get into the settings and read what's in there: store name, account email, customer email. See, these are things, these are questions that I get. How do I change the email that's associated with the store? Well, right here. It's your customer service email, your account email. This is where you're going to get notifications when the sale comes in. This is where customers are going to be forwarding their email. And Shopify uses MX. So when they email admin at Shopify or whatever it is, then it will forward to the email that is, if you email them, they'll see this email address. So you've got your store address and information here. It's good practice to add your phone number. Now you can create your own, like a Google Voice number, or just a different a different phone number is good practice. You don't need to use your personal number. And you don't need to buy a professional number either. Just get a digital number and pop it in there. Standards and formats, time zones, different things like that, store currency. Now, before I wrap up here, there's also a practice that might be good, something to entertain down the line, is your language. So you can change the language that you got right here, store languages. And then there are even third-party applications that can further optimize how that language is presented, syntax and whatnot. And so then what that does is it opens up the number of countries that you can market to. Okay, so payments, this is where you're going to pop in all of your payment information. Pretty self-explanatory. You just connect your accounts, run through the prompts and processes that they ask you to go through. Checkout. This is a very important page to read each item and see what it means. Like, for instance, company name. I like to keep it optional, just in case. Okay, so this is important to read each and every item just to be familiar with where that item is, because what's pertinent to me might not necessarily be so much to you, and vice versa. So it's important to be familiar with where everything is and sort of what it pertains to. Order processing. So it's good to reach each and every one of these items individually. Like one I like to have checked is pre-select the sign-up option. So this is how you can end up with more subscribers to your email marketing. You show a sign-up option at checkout and you pre-select the option. A lot of times people won't see it and they'll just sign up. So just kind of the way things work. It's the way things are. Abandoned checkouts. You can experiment with this, or you can stick with the recommended time. People will get an email subscribers who abandon the checkout will get a notification after so many hours. Managing the checkout language. So you've got, here's a good reason to read each item individually, because here you've got checkout language, but then if you go back to settings, you've got store languages way over here. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I know that I've taken up a lot of time, but I really wanted to do the bulk of going over individual items within the back end of Shopify. But then I also wanted to illustrate how important it is for you yourself to really go in and look at everything. It really would only take 15 minutes to just sit down and look at everything. I have experienced firsthand just how unlikely of a scenario that is. People don't sit down and read what's there, and then they'll get confused over something, and they'll become, out of fear of failure for this to succeed in business anyway, they will go ahead and concede to the thought. They'll go ahead and concede to being disheartened. So they'll get discouraged, and because they were already afraid of the fear of failure, they'll get discouraged at the fact that they don't know where a specific option is. And so they'll lose faith or lose motivation or optimism. And so don't do that. Don't do that. It's IT. It's IT. A lot of it is analysis, and we'll talk more about that. We'll break into that with the next video talking about strategy, but it starts with analysis. It starts with IT. You have to commit to solving the problems as they come down the pipeline. You cannot foresee everything. And when you have a problem, you have to say, okay, I'm going to Google it, I'm going to YouTube it, I'm going to see what's out there, I'm going to use the prompts that I'm going to read the prompts that are on the screen. I'm going to become aware of what's going on the screen. I'm going to navigate and try some different things. And I'm going to look for keywords and text that I can copy and paste into Google and YouTube and further research whatever it is that it might not, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it might not even be an error. It might just be something that I want to know more about, like, for instance, how email works with Shopify. How do I stay in touch with my contacts? That's a great thing to ask, but that's something you could learn within 4 minutes just by searching on YouTube. So I want to empower you in this first video, and I want to make sure that you don't lose faith. I want to make sure that you don't lose faith or focus or become discouraged. None of that is necessary. So, okay, I'm going to wrap that one up there, and I will see you in the next one.